no protection from the cold. At 19, she already understood what it meant to be an Omega. She was invisible until someone needed a servant, a scapegoat, or a body to punish. There she is. Delea's stomach tightened. She knew that voice. Josephine Blankenship emerged through the rain with 3 friends walking beside her like trained hunting dogs. As the daughter of the Beta family, Josephine had never known hunger, cold, or fear. Her blonde hair remained perfectly arranged beneath an expensive waterproof cloak. The garment probably cost more than Delea earned in an entire year. "I've been searching everywhere for you, Omega," Josephine said. Her smile showed teeth but carried no warmth. "The Alpha's boots must be polished before tonight's ceremony. His chambers need to be scrubbed again." "I cleaned them yesterday," Delea answered quietly. She knew the truth would not matter, but the words escaped before she could stop them. Josephine's amber eyes flashed. "Are you arguing with me?" Her wolf pressed close beneath her skin, making the threat unmistakable. "You seem to have forgotten your place." Delea immediately lowered her gaze. Looking directly at a higher-ranking wolf was forbidden. Speaking without permission was forbidden. Standing where someone stronger wanted to stand was forbidden. Every day, the list of crimes she committed simply by existing seemed to grow. "Forgive me," Delea whispered. "Louder," Josephine ordered. "Let everyone hear how pathetic you are." The training grounds had become silent. Dozens of young wolves preparing for the Harvest Moon ceremony had stopped to watch. A few appeared uncomfortable, but most looked entertained. No one stepped forward. No one ever did. "Forgive me," Delea repeated, her voice breaking. Josephine laughed, the sound sharp and brittle. "That's better. Now get to work." She stepped closer until her breath touched Delea's ear. "And Delea, if I find one speck of dust in those chambers, I'll tell the Alpha you were lazy again. We both remember what happened the last time." Delea's hand moved unconsciously toward her ribs. Beneath her clothes, bruises from her latest correction still covered her skin in shades of purple and yellow. The pack enforcers did not believe in gentle warnings. Josephine and her friends walked away through the rain. Delea allowed herself one shaking breath before pushing away from the wall. The main pack house stood in the center of the territory, a vast marble mansion built as a monument to power and hierarchy. The Alpha's private chambers occupied its entire 3rd floor. To reach them, Delea had to cross the compound. The journey became another punishment. "Move, Omega," a warrior snarled as she passed the combat rings. "Watch where you're walking, filth," another wolf shouted near the dining hall. A group of adolescents scooped mud from the ground and threw it at her back. Their laughter followed her across the training yard. Delea never turned around. She had learned long ago that any reaction only encouraged them. By the time she reached the servants' entrance, her clothing was soaked and covered in mud. Her body shook uncontrollably, but she refused to let the tears fall while anyone could see them. Patty Mora, the older wolf who supervised the household staff, took one look at her and sighed. "Difficult morning?" "The same as every morning," Delea managed. Patty handed her a clean cloth and a bucket filled with cleaning supplies. "The Alpha expects everything to be perfect tonight. Half the regional packs are attending the ceremony. Don't give him a reason to notice you." Being noticed was the last thing Delea wanted. She had spent her entire life trying to disappear into the background, hoping that if she became quiet enough, useful enough, and small enough, the pack might forget she existed. It had never worked. Omegas were too valuable as targets for everyone else's anger. Delea climbed the servants' staircase. Her legs already ached from the work she had completed the previous day. She entered the Alpha's chambers through a side door. The rooms were already spotless. Josephine had lied about them needing to be cleaned, but Delea understood that refusing the task would only bring another punishment. She scrubbed every surface and every corner. She polished the Alpha's boots until the black leather reflected her face. She folded his ceremonial robes into perfect lines, and arranged every object on his desk according to his precise preferences. 4 hours passed before she finished. Her stomach growled painfully. She had missed breakfast again. Omegas were always served last. By the time the higher-ranking wolves finished eating, only bones and scraps usually remained. Delea had learned to function with almost nothing in her stomach. As she descended the servants' staircase, voices drifted from the corridor below. "We can't keep her here much longer," a man said. Delea froze. The speaker was Linwood Dalton, the pack's head enforcer. His voice carried authority and a cruelty that always seemed close to the surface. "She's a liability," Linwood continued. "Weak blood. Other packs mock us because we still tolerate an Omega that pathetic." "That decision belongs to the Alpha," Patty replied carefully. "The Alpha is too soft. She's 19 and can't even shift. She should have been exiled years ago." Cold spread through Delea's body. She flattened herself against the stairwell wall, hidden in the shadows. "She works harder than half the pack," Patty said. "She's genetic dead weight," Linwood snapped. "You know what the Council teaches about eliminating weak bloodlines." "It isn't mercy." "It is. Ending her life would be kinder than allowing her to keep suffering." Their voices faded as they moved down the corridor, but the words stayed behind. Delea had always known that her position was dangerous. Omegas lived only because their packs allowed them to live. Still, hearing Linwood discuss her death with such casual certainty made her entire body tremble. She could not shift. That was the shame the pack never allowed her to forget. Most wolves discovered their wolf forms before the age of 13. Delea was 19 and had never transformed. The healer claimed that her wolf might be dormant, but the pack had already reached its own conclusion. She was defective. Broken. A mistake in the bloodline that should have been corrected long ago. Delea continued downstairs and slipped through the servants' entrance. She needed air that did not taste like fear. The rain had finally stopped. Water dripped from the trees, and the sky remained heavy and gray. She walked without knowing where she intended to go. Her feet carried her toward the eastern edge of the territory, where the forest grew thick and wild. Then she heard something. A faint whimper. Delea stopped and listened. The sound came again, almost lost beneath the wind moving through the pine branches. It came from a drainage ditch near the border. Delea approached carefully and looked into the muddy hollow. Her heart clenched. 3 wolf pups lay huddled together in the filthy water. They were soaking wet, shaking from the cold, and no more than a few weeks old. Their eyes had barely opened, and mud covered their tangled fur. The smallest pup was not moving. Delea searched the surrounding forest. No one was there. The pups did not belong to her pack. She knew the scent of every wolf inside the territory, and these 3 carried only the smell of rain, mud, and desperation. They were probably rogues. Perhaps their mother had been killed. Perhaps she had abandoned them. The sensible decision was to walk away. The pack maintained strict laws concerning outsiders. Bringing rogue wolves into the territory was forbidden. Hiding them could be punished by exile or death. The largest pup released another weak whimper. Its dark eyes lifted toward Delea. The pup was not begging. It was simply looking at her, acknowledging her, seeing her in a way no member of the pack ever had. At that moment, Delea made a decision that would alter the course of her life. She removed her coat, the only warm possession she owned, and climbed into the ditch. One by one, she lifted the pups and wrapped them in the worn fabric. They were so small that all 3 fit easily inside her arms. The smallest male stirred. His heartbeat was weak, but it was still there. "I have you," Delea whispered. "I won't leave you here." She could not take them to the pack house. Discovery would mean death for all of them. But there was one other place. An abandoned groundskeeper's cottage stood near the edge of the territory. No one had lived there since the previous groundskeeper died 5 years earlier. Delea had discovered it while searching for places where she could be alone. The roof leaked. Several windows were cracked, and the floorboards groaned beneath every step. But it was hidden. It offered shelter. For now, it could be safe. Delia hurried through the forest with the pups held tightly against her chest. Their combined weight was almost nothing to her. Her arms had been trained to carry far heavier burdens. The cottage appeared between the trees, dark and forgotten. Delia pushed the door open with her shoulder and stepped into the dusty interior. Over the years, she had hidden a few supplies there. She had salvaged several blankets, stolen a handful of candles, and taken a small cooking pot from the packhouse storage room. She placed the pups on the cleanest blanket and lit a candle. Under the weak flame, she examined them properly. 2 were male, with fur so dark it was almost black. The female's coat was lighter, colored like autumn leaves. All 3 were severely underfed, their ribs pressed visibly beneath their thin fur. The smallest male, the pup who had barely been breathing, slowly opened his eyes. He looked directly at her. Something ancient seemed to live in that gaze. Delia had the strange sensation that the tiny creature was studying her, measuring the choice she had made, and finding her worthy. "You're going to survive," she promised, although she had no idea whether that promise could be kept. "All 3 of you." Delia knew nothing about raising pups. She had no money, no allies, and almost no food. But she knew what it felt like to be abandoned. She understood what it meant to be declared worthless and left at the mercy of a world that wanted you gone. She had never known how to save herself. But perhaps she could save them. Chapter 2. The Secret Family. Delia spent the entire first night watching the pups breathe. She tore her only spare shirt into strips and layered the cloth inside an old wooden crate, creating a nest. Every few hours, one of the pups whimpered. Each time, she stroked its small head until it settled again. Her greatest problem was food. Young wolf pups needed rich milk their bodies could digest. Delia had nothing. The pack kitchens were locked during the night, and wolves guarded every entrance. If she were caught stealing, she would be reported immediately. Even if she somehow entered without being seen, taking enough milk to feed 3 growing pups would soon attract attention. As dawn brightened the cottage's cracked windows, Delia made another dangerous choice. She would have to feed them with her own rations. An Omega's food allowance was barely enough to keep 1 person alive. It could never support Delia and 3 hungry pups. But Delia had survived hunger before. She would find a way. She had no other choice. She left the pups sleeping and raced toward the pack house. She needed to reach the servants' quarters before the morning bell. If she was absent when assignments were distributed, someone would begin asking questions. Patty looked at her closely when Delia arrived, breathless and exhausted. "You look terrible," the older woman said. "Worse than usual." "I didn't sleep well." That answer, at least, was true. "Then pull yourself together. The Alpha wants the entire West Wing cleaned. The visiting packs left it in chaos last night, and he's already in a foul temper." Delia's heart sank. The West Wing contained dozens of guest rooms, 3 ballrooms, and more sitting chambers than she could count. The task would consume the entire day, perhaps longer. But she could not object. Objection led to punishment. "Yes, ma'am," Delia answered. The work was as brutal as she expected. She scrubbed the floors until blood soaked through the knees of her worn trousers. She polished silver until her fingers cramped and carried heavy bags of dirty linen down 4 flights of stairs. The servants' elevator had been broken for months, and no one cared enough to repair something used mainly by Omegas. By evening, Delia could barely stand. Still, she had managed to hide half a loaf of bread beneath her clothing. She had also taken a piece of cheese abandoned on a breakfast tray. Most valuable of all, she had stolen a small bottle of milk when the cooks turned away. It was not enough. It would never be enough. But it was something. Darkness had fallen by the time she returned to the cottage. The pups were awake and crying weakly. They had gone more than a day without food. Delia warmed the milk above a candle flame. She tested it against her wrist, copying what she had seen pack mothers do when feeding their own children. When it was warm enough, she dipped a clean strip of cloth into the milk and brought it to the smallest male's mouth. He latched onto it at once. He drank with desperate hunger. Relief flooded through Delia. She fed the 3 pups one at a time, measuring every drop so each received a fair share. The bottle emptied too quickly. Their stomachs were not full, but the crying stopped. They curled together inside the crate and fell asleep. Delia watched them and allowed herself a small smile. It was her first victory. The same pattern continued for weeks. During the day, she worked until her body threatened to collapse. She collected scraps whenever no one was watching. At night, she returned to the cottage and cared for the secret family no one knew existed. She quickly learned their different personalities. The largest male had dark, dust-colored fur, so she began calling him Dusty. He was bold and protective, always placing his body between his siblings and the door. The female's bright autumn coat reminded Delia of morning light, so she named her Morgan. Morgan was curious and intelligent. Her eyes followed every movement Delia made. The smallest male became Gabriel. Gabriel was quiet, gentle, and deeply observant. Somehow, he always seemed to know when Delia had reached the edge of her strength. The pups grew slowly, but they grew. Delia became weaker. Most of her food went to them. She survived on whatever they left behind, and the occasional vegetable she managed to take from the pack garden. Her clothing became loose. Her cheeks hollowed, and shadows darkened the skin beneath her eyes. The other wolves began to notice. "You look like death," Josephine said one morning, wrinkling her nose. "Even more pathetic than usual. Are you sick?" "No," Delia lied. "Well, you smell worse. Stay away from me." Delia was grateful when Josephine dismissed her. She could not afford questions. She could not allow anyone to study her too closely. But Patty was already watching. 3 weeks after Delia found the pups, the older woman cornered her inside a storage room and shut the door. "What is happening to you?" Patty demanded. "Nothing. I'm fine. Don't lie to me. You're disappearing in front of my eyes. You're exhausted, you're starving, and yesterday I saw you hiding food in your clothes." Delia opened her mouth, but Patty raised one hand. "I didn't report you, but I need to understand. What are you doing?" Delia's mind raced. She could not reveal the pups. If Patty learned the truth, pack law might force her to report them. "I'm hungry," Delia answered at last. "My rations aren't enough." Patty studied her in silence. Then she reached into her apron and removed a small wrapped package. "Take this." Delia opened it and saw several pieces of roast meat. "Leftovers from the Alpha's dinner," Patty explained. "Hide them more carefully next time." Delia stared at the food. Kindness was so rare that she had almost forgotten how it felt. "Thank you." "Don't thank me. Be careful, Delia. Whatever you're doing, you need to be careful. The enforcers have started watching you." Delia's body went cold. "Why?" "Linwood asked yesterday whether you'd been behaving strangely." "What did you tell him?" "I said you've always seemed strange because you're an Omega." Patty's blunt answer almost sounded amusing, but the warning in her eyes did not. "He's suspicious. Watch yourself." The warning haunted Delia. She changed the routes she used to reach the cottage. She never visited at the same hour twice, and covered every footprint or broken branch that might expose her path. The pups were almost 5 weeks old now. Their eyes were fully open, and their movements had become coordinated. Soon, they would begin walking properly. Soon, milk and stolen scraps would no longer be enough. One evening, Delia was gathering firewood near the cottage when voices moved through the forest. She dropped the branches and hid behind a thick oak tree. "Somewhere near here," Linwood was saying. Delia's heart hammered. Of course it was him. "Scouts reported unfamiliar scents near the eastern border," Linwood continued. "Perhaps rogues passed through," another enforcer suggested. Perhaps someone is hiding them." You know the punishment. Immediate execution. They were less than 30 yards from the cottage. If they continued in the same direction, they would find it. Delea made a desperate decision. She picked up a fallen branch and deliberately stepped on it. The crack echoed between the trees. Then she stumbled from behind the oak as though she had been surprised. "Who's there?" Linwood barked. His hand went to the knife at his belt. "It's only me," Delea called. "I was gathering firewood." Linwood approached slowly. "The Omega. Why are you so far from the compound?" "The Alpha's chambers needed more wood." She prayed he could not smell the fear pouring from her skin. "The supply ran out." "There's firewood stored behind the pack house," Linwood said. "Why would you walk all the way here?" "I didn't know. I'm sorry. I'll go back." Delea turned, but Linwood seized her arm. His grip was strong enough to bruise. His claws extended slightly and pressed into her skin. "You're hiding something," he said softly. "I can smell lies and secrets all over you." Delea forced herself to look into his eyes, even though every instinct inside her screamed for submission. "I'm not hiding anything. Please release me. I have work to finish." For one terrible moment, she was certain he would drag her toward the cottage. She imagined the pups being discovered and killed because of her reckless decision to save them. Then a howl tore through the forest. The Alpha's summons. Every pack member was required to answer immediately. Linwood released Delea with obvious reluctance. "This conversation is not over, Omega. I'll be watching you." He and the other enforcer ran toward the compound. Both shifted in mid-stride, their powerful wolf forms disappearing through the trees. Delea waited until their scents had completely faded. Only then did her legs collapse beneath her. They had come too close. She returned to the cottage with trembling hands. The pups sensed her fear at once. They whined and pressed themselves against her legs. They were growing quickly. Gabriel was already the size of a small dog, and his siblings were larger. "We can't remain here much longer," Delea said, stroking Morgan's russet fur. "They're becoming suspicious. If they find us." She could not finish. The pups watched her with understanding far beyond their age. For the first time, Delea wondered what she had truly rescued from the drainage ditch. These were not ordinary pups. Their eyes held too much intelligence, their bodies were developing too quickly, and something powerful seemed to move beneath their skin. But whatever power they possessed would not protect them if the pack discovered them too soon. Delea needed a plan. She needed somewhere safe enough to hide them until they could survive alone. She simply had no idea where such a place existed. Outside the cottage, the wind carried distant sounds from the pack's nightly gathering. Somewhere among those wolves, Linwood was watching and waiting for an opportunity to prove that she had broken the law. Delea knew he would eventually find one. The only question was whether she could save the pups before he did. Chapter 3. The First Shift. 2 months after Delea found the pups, everything changed. She was in the pack house kitchen, scrubbing pots from the evening meal, when pain struck her spine. A burning sensation spread through her body like fire. Delea gasped and dropped the pot. It struck the floor with a loud metallic crash. The head cook glared at her. "Clumsy Omega, if you damaged that, you'll pay for it." Delea could not answer. She could barely breathe. Her bones felt as though they were tearing apart and rearranging themselves. Every muscle screamed. Something that had slept inside her for 19 years was suddenly awake. "What's wrong with her?" someone asked. "She's shifting," another wolf whispered in disbelief. "The Omega is shifting." Impossible. Delea had tried to transform countless times. She had stood alone beneath full moons and begged her wolf to appear. Nothing had ever happened. The pack healers eventually declared that her wolf was dead, missing, or had never existed. But now she could feel it. Her wolf was not dead. It had only been waiting. The transformation came with unbearable agony. A first shift normally occurred while the body was young and prepared. Delea was 19, untrained, and completely alone. As her body convulsed, she believed the pain might kill her. When it finally ended, she found herself standing on 4 trembling legs. The kitchen had gone silent. Every wolf stared at her. Some appeared shocked. Others looked disgusted. Delea's wolf was small, much smaller than an adult wolf should have been. Her fur was a dull, ordinary gray. Weakness filled every muscle and bone. Even after finally shifting, she remained a disappointment. "I don't believe it," the head cook muttered. 19 years old, and that is the best she can manage? Cruel laughter spread through the kitchen. Delea tried to move on unfamiliar legs. She crashed into a table, knocked over a chair, and staggered through the doorway. Then she ran. Her movements were clumsy and nothing like the smooth grace of the other wolves. Still, she ran toward the only place where she had ever felt safe. The cottage. The pups were waiting when she arrived. The moment she crossed the threshold, something extraordinary occurred. Gabriel, the smallest pup, rose on unsteady legs. A soft golden light surrounded his body. Morgan and Dusty stood beside him, both glowing with the same strange radiance. Delea shifted back into human form without intending to. She collapsed naked and exhausted on the floor. The 3 pups approached and pressed their noses against her skin. Warmth poured into Delea. It was nothing like the burning pain of transformation. This energy felt ancient, powerful, and completely unfamiliar. Her wolf strengthened inside her. Connections formed between Delea and the pups, deeper than any ordinary pack bond. When the golden light disappeared, Delea understood. The pups were not normal wolves. They were something far older. By rescuing them, feeding them, and sacrificing her own strength so they could live, she had created a bond that reached beyond the laws of modern packs. They had awakened her wolf. They had given her what everyone said she would never possess. "Thank you," Delea whispered as tears ran down her face. "Thank you." Gabriel licked her cheek. Morgan curled against her side. Dusty walked to the entrance and stood guard. For the first time in Delea's life, she did not feel alone. Her happiness lasted exactly 3 days. Delea was carrying water from the well when Josephine blocked her path. 2 other high-ranking females stood beside her. The Beta's daughter wore an expression of cruel delight. "So, the Omega finally found her wolf," Josephine said sweetly. "How disappointing. I've seen young pups with more presence." Delea lowered her eyes and tried to pass. Josephine stepped in front of her. "I heard something interesting today. Scouts have reported unfamiliar scents near the eastern border. Young wolves." Her smile widened. "You wouldn't know anything about that, would you?" Delea's blood turned cold. "No. Linwood believes someone is hiding rogues. And you've been behaving very strangely. You're always exhausted. You steal food and disappear for hours." "I haven't done anything wrong." "Then you won't object if we search your belongings and your sleeping quarters." Josephine leaned closer. "Or perhaps we should search the little cottage you keep visiting." The world seemed to tilt beneath Delea's feet. They knew. Somehow, they knew. "I don't understand what you mean." Her voice betrayed her. Josephine laughed. "You're a terrible liar." She turned toward the shadows. "Linwood, I think we should inspect the old groundskeeper's cottage. Right now." 3 enforcers emerged. Linwood stood at their head with triumph written across his face. "Lead us there, Omega," he ordered. "Otherwise we'll follow your scent. The choice is yours." Delea's thoughts raced. If she took them to the cottage, the pups would be found. If she refused, the enforcers would search the forest and find them anyway. There was no path of escape. She had failed. "Actually," another voice interrupted, "I need the Omega for an assignment." Everyone turned. Patty stood nearby with her arms crossed. "The Alpha requested her assistance with tonight's meal. She's already late." "This investigation takes priority," Linwood replied. "Does it?" Patty raised one eyebrow. Would you like to explain to the Alpha why his dinner was delayed because you followed one of Josephine's rumors? Linwood's jaw tightened. The Alpha's temper was legendary, and his meal schedule was treated like sacred law. Fine, Linwood said, but this is only a delay. We will search that cottage tonight, with or without her. Josephine gave Delia a venomous look before walking away with the enforcers. Patty seized Delia's arm and pulled her toward the pack house. Once they were alone, she lowered her voice. You have 2 hours. Whatever you're hiding must be moved or destroyed. 2 hours, Delia. That is all I can give you. Why are you helping me? Patty's expression softened. Because I was an Omega once, before I became too old to be useful for anything except housekeeping. I know what this life does to you. She released Delia. Run. Delia ran. She burst into the cottage, gasping for breath. The pups were almost adolescent in size. They sensed her panic immediately and raised their hackles. We have to leave, Delia told them. They know you're here. They're coming. But where could they go? The pack's territory stretched for miles. Beyond it lay wilderness filled with rogue packs, predators, and dangers Delia could not imagine. The pups were powerful, but they were not ready to survive alone. Gabriel approached. His dark eyes remained calm. He pressed his head beneath Delia's palm. Images filled her mind. She saw a cave hidden deep in the mountains at the northern edge of the territory. The entrance stood behind a waterfall and was protected by ancient magic that could keep enemies away. How do you know? Delia stopped. It did not matter. Gabriel was offering them a chance. She collected everything she possessed, several blankets, an extra set of clothes, the food Patty had given her, and the few remaining supplies. The pups circled her while she worked. Their usual playfulness had disappeared, replaced by deadly focus. They left the cottage at twilight and moved through the forest like shadows. Delia's wolf remained clumsy and weak, but fear drove her onward. Dusty led the way. Morgan guarded the rear. Gabriel remained close to Delia's side. They traveled for hours through the darkness. Every broken twig made Delia's heart jump. Every movement in the bushes could have been an enforcer. Then howls rose behind them. The hunt had begun. Faster, Delia urged, although her legs already burned. We have to move faster. The pups changed formation. Dusty moved beside her and pressed against her leg. He had grown large enough to carry her. Delia climbed onto his back without hesitation. Dusty surged forward. Morgan and Gabriel ran on either side of him. Together, they moved faster than Delia could ever have traveled alone. The forest became a blur. The howls behind them grew distant. Dawn was beginning when they reached the mountain. Delia struggled to keep her eyes open. Every part of her body had been pushed beyond exhaustion. Gabriel guided them upward along a path Delia could not see. The cave from his vision was real. A waterfall concealed the entrance, and the narrow passage behind it forced them to enter one at a time. Beyond the passage, the cave opened into a wide chamber. A natural spring flowed in one corner. Thick moss covered sections of stone and offered a place to sleep. Delia collapsed as soon as they were inside. The pups curled around her, surrounding her with enough warmth to hold back the mountain cold. We made it, she whispered. We actually escaped. But as exhaustion pulled her toward sleep, Delia understood the truth. They had survived that night. The pack would not stop searching. Linwood would hunt them until he could make an example of the Omega who had defied one of their most sacred laws. This was not the end. It was only the beginning. Chapter 4. Sentenced without trial. The cave became both their sanctuary and their prison. For 3 weeks, Delia and the pups remained inside the mountain, leaving only when survival required it. They ate wild berries, fish from the stream that fed the waterfall, and whatever small animals the pups managed to catch. Delia's body became leaner and harder. Her wolf strengthened every time she shifted, as though freedom from the pack's oppression had finally allowed it to develop. The pups flourished. They were nearly full grown, and their true nature became more difficult to ignore. When they ran, faint golden light remained behind their paws. When they hunted, they moved with impossible coordination. At night, they slept around Delea in a protective circle. Sometimes she entered their dreams. She saw ancient forests and wolves that moved between worlds. She felt power older than every modern pack, sleeping beneath the earth for thousands of years. Delea had saved far more than 3 abandoned pups. She still did not understand what they truly were. On the 23rd day of their exile, Gabriel woke her before dawn. His body was tense, and urgency filled his dark eyes. A warning moved through their bond. Someone was approaching. Delea quietly woke Morgan and Dusty. All 3 guardians placed themselves between her and the cave entrance. Their lips lifted, exposing teeth that had grown long and deadly. Footsteps sounded beyond the waterfall. They were lighter than an enforcer's steps. Familiar. Patty pushed through the falling water, soaked and breathing heavily. She stopped when she saw the guardians. "Blessed moon," she whispered. "What are they?" "Please don't report us," Delea begged. "I know I broke the law, but they would have died. I didn't come to turn you in." Patty's gaze moved from the guardians to Delea. Something close to respect softened her face. "I came to warn you. The Alpha has called a tribunal. They declared you a rogue for abandoning your work and stealing pack supplies." "I didn't abandon anything. They were going to kill me." "I know. But the tribunal is in 3 days, and the council has already chosen your sentence." Patty paused. "Death." Delea felt the cave close around her. "Linwood has been authorized to hunt you and execute you on sight." Patty opened her coat and removed a wrapped bundle. "I brought food, medicine, and blankets. It isn't much." "Why are you doing this?" Delea interrupted. "They could exile you. They could kill you." Patty remained silent for a long moment. Then she sat on the stone. 20 years ago, I was an Omega like you. I became pregnant by a wolf who wanted nothing to do with me or the child." Her voice tightened. "The pack said an Omega bloodline wasn't worth continuing. They ordered me to end the pregnancy." Delea stared at her. "I ran. I tried to hide, but they found me." Patty's words broke. "They held me down while the healer did what the Alpha commanded." Tears moved over her weathered face. "I never forgave myself for not fighting harder or running farther. When I look at you, I see a girl who has been beaten down her entire life, yet you still chose to protect 3 lives, even when it could cost you everything." She wiped the tears away roughly. "I won't allow you to face this alone the way I did." Delea's throat closed. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. The tribunal is only a performance. Linwood and his hunters are the real danger. They will bring everything they have." Patty glanced toward the guardians. "Those 3 are not ordinary wolves. Anyone can see that. Whatever they are, they may be your only advantage." "I don't want to fight my pack," Delea said. "I only want them to leave us alone." "The world rarely allows that, child, especially when you're an Omega." Patty squeezed her shoulder. "But with these 3 beside you, perhaps you can survive. Perhaps you can become what I never could." She looked into Delea's eyes. Free. After Patty left, Delea sat with the guardians and attempted to make a plan. She had no allies except Patty. She had no pack and no resources beyond the supplies the older woman had risked her life to deliver. The safest choice seemed to be running farther into the wilderness, beyond the reach of every organized territory. Gabriel disagreed. He approached with a piece of bark held between his teeth. Symbols had been carved across its surface. Delea recognized them from the historical texts locked inside the Alpha's private study. They belonged to the ancient wolf language used by the first packs. "Where did you find this?" Gabriel dropped the bark and touched his nose to her hand. Images flooded Delea's mind. The cave system extended deeper than she had realized. Chambers filled with ancient objects waited beneath the mountain. She saw a stone altar covered in the same symbols. A prophecy had been carved into the living rock. When the forgotten rise and the rejected show mercy, 3 guardians shall wake from their slumber. They shall bond with the one whose wolf sleeps in shadow. Together, they will restore balance to the broken packs. You're the guardians, Delaya breathed. The prophecy speaks about you. Dusty released a short breath that might have been agreement. Morgan circled Delaya, wagging her tail slightly. Gabriel only watched her with those impossibly intelligent eyes. But I'm no one, Delaya protested. I'm an Omega. I can't restore balance to anything. The words felt wrong even as she spoke them. Her entire life, others had told her that she was useless, broken, and lesser. The Guardians did not see her that way. When they looked at Delaya, they saw something the pack had deliberately refused to acknowledge. They saw potential. 3 days later, the tribunal began at dusk. Delaya watched from a distant ridge, hidden among the trees. The entire pack had gathered inside the ceremonial circle. Quentin Carlson, the Alpha, stood at its center, in the form of a massive gray wolf. Authority radiated from him, with the force of heat from a furnace. Linwood, Josephine, and the pack council stood nearby. In the center of the circle, enforcers had erected a wooden frame. Delaya's stomach twisted when she understood its purpose. An execution post. Delaya Sims, Quentin called. His voice crossed the territory with enough power to make the surrounding trees seem to recoil. You have been summoned to answer for abandonment of duty, theft of pack resources, and the harboring of rogue wolves. Each crime carries a sentence of death. Silence followed. Delaya remained hidden. Her heart pounded painfully. She isn't coming, Josephine said. She knows she's guilty. Then judgment will proceed in her absence, Quentin declared. He lifted his head. By ancient law and the authority of this pack, Delaya Sims is declared rogue. She is expelled from our territory and marked for death. Any wolf who encounters her is authorized to kill her on sight. Her bloodline is ended. Her name will be removed from our records. His next words struck harder than any weapon. She no longer exists. The pack howled as one. The sound carried judgment and absolute finality. Something inside Delaya broke. The weak pack bond that had connected her to those wolves for 19 years snapped. She gasped at the sudden emptiness. They had been cruel, but they were the only family she had ever known. Now even that connection was gone. Linwood, Quentin continued, take your best hunters. Bring me proof of the rogue's death within 1 week, or answer for your failure. It will be my pleasure, Alpha, Linwood replied. Predatory excitement filled his voice. Delaya retreated into the forest. She was completely exiled now. The pack that had abused her for 19 years had erased her name and ordered her death. They would hunt her like an animal. Halfway to the cave, Delaya collapsed beside a tree. Sobs tore through her chest. Every insult she had heard since childhood repeated inside her mind. Worthless, defective, better off dead. Warm bodies pressed against her from 3 directions. The creatures beside her were no longer helpless pups. They were nearly grown, their presence powerful and steady. Gabriel placed his head in her lap. Morgan leaned against her side. Dusty stood in front of her, facing the forest and guarding them all. I'm sorry, Delaya whispered. I'm not strong enough. You deserve someone worthy of the prophecy. Gabriel made a sound between a growl and a whine. His meaning entered her mind as clearly as spoken words. You are worthy. You rescued us when you possessed nothing. You protected us when it required you to lose everything. That is strength. They were right about me, Delaya insisted. I'm weak. My wolf is pathetic. I still struggle to shift. How can I restore balance to anything when I can barely survive alone? Morgan gently nipped Delaya's hand. When Delaya looked into her bright eyes, she saw herself reflected as the Guardians saw her. Not an Omega. Not a worthless reject. She saw a woman who had chosen kindness when cruelty would have been easier. A woman who had sacrificed everything for 3 lives she had no obligation to protect. A woman who had shown the Guardians what a pack was supposed to mean. "We will teach you," Dusty's presence seemed to promise. "We will make you strong." Standing in the forest with 3 ancient guardians surrounding her, Delaya faced a choice. She could run forever. She could hide from Linwood and wait for the inevitable day his hunters found her. Or she could become something her old pack had never allowed her to be. Someone who fought back. Chapter 5. When Prey Becomes Predator. The training began at dawn. Delaya had always believed she was weak because everyone around her had told her so. Her wolf was small, her transformations were slow and painful. Years of abuse had crushed every instinct that might have encouraged resistance. The Guardians looked past those limitations. They saw something the pack had tried to destroy. They saw what she could become. Gabriel began with her senses. He circled her inside a clearing near the cave, moving with silent grace. Delaya had to follow him without using her eyes. Human sight was too limited. She needed to rely on scent, sound, vibration, and the hidden instincts of her wolf. Her first attempts were humiliating. Gabriel moved, and Delaya spun helplessly, always several steps behind. But he never mocked her. Unlike the pack's trainers, he did not punish failure. He returned to the beginning and allowed her to try again. Morgan taught her to transform. Every shift had been an agonizing struggle that lasted several minutes. Delaya had always fought the change, afraid of the pain and the unfamiliar loss of control. Morgan showed her how to welcome her wolf instead of forcing it forward. "Everything hurts," Delaya gasped after the 5th shift of the morning. She collapsed onto the moss. Morgan pressed against her. Warm energy moved through their bond, soothing the burning inside Delaya's muscles and bones. When Morgan stepped away, the pain had faded to a manageable ache. Dusty gave Delaya the most difficult lessons. He taught her to fight. Delaya had never fought back. Resistance meant correction. It meant being pinned beneath enforcers while they punished her for forgetting her rank. Every instinct she possessed ordered her to lower her eyes, expose her throat, and submit. Dusty refused to accept it. He attacked without causing serious injury, but with enough force to demand a response. Every time Delaya dropped into a submissive position, he stopped. Then they began again. After the 20th attempt, Delaya broke down. "I can't do this," she sobbed. "I don't know how to fight. It isn't inside me." Dusty growled in frustration. Then he stopped attacking. Memories moved through their bond. Delaya saw herself as Dusty had first seen her. A thin, shivering figure walking through the rain toward a ditch where 3 pups were dying. She watched herself remove her only coat and wrap them inside it. She saw her own arms trembling as she carried them through the forest. The memories shifted. Night after night, Delaya returned to the cottage. She fed the pups while her own stomach cramped with hunger. She protected them, even though discovery meant death. "That was different," Delaya said. "I couldn't abandon you." Dusty's response reached her with absolute clarity. "That was fighting. Fighting is not only claws and teeth. Fighting means choosing to act when surrender would be easier. You have fought your entire life." The truth struck Delaya harder than any blow. She had never recognized survival as resistance. She had never understood that remaining compassionate in a world determined to crush her was its own form of battle. "Show me," she whispered. "Teach me how to fight." Approval entered Dusty's eyes. He attacked again. This time, when Delaya's instincts screamed for her to submit, she remembered the pups in the drainage ditch. She remembered every moment when she had chosen their lives over her own safety. Delaya moved. Her dodge was clumsy. She stumbled and almost fell. But she had acted instead of surrendering. That single choice changed everything. They trained for 6 days without rest beyond what survival required. Delaya fell and rose again. Her body and wolf were pushed toward limits she had never imagined. Slowly and painfully, she began to change. Her transformations became faster and smoother. Her wolf remained smaller than most adult wolves, but it moved with growing confidence. Her senses sharpened until she could track Gabriel while blindfolded. She could separate the scent of morning dew from afternoon rain and hear a rabbit's heartbeat from 100 yards away. Delea was not as strong as a trained warrior, but she was stronger than she had ever been. On the 7th day, Linwood's hunters found them. Delea was catching fish in the stream when Gabriel's warning tore through their bond. She dropped the fish, shifted while running, and raced toward the cave. Morgan and Dusty were already positioned outside the entrance. 5 wolves emerged from the trees. Linwood led them in his massive brown wolf form. The other 4 were enforcers Delea recognized. Each had participated in her corrections over the years. There she is, Linwood snarled. The rogue Omega who believes she is above pack justice. Delea's first instinct was to run. A deeper part of her wanted to hide, submit, and beg for mercy she knew would never be given. Then she felt the guardians behind her. Their certainty surrounded her. They believed she deserved protection. Something inside Delea became solid. "I'm not returning with you," she said. Her steady voice surprised even her. Linwood released a horrible laugh. "You think you have a choice? You're a rogue. You're prey. We'll drag your corpse to the Alpha and prove the natural order still exists." The natural order? Delea felt years of buried anger rising. You mean the system where Omegas are beaten and starved? Where saving a life is punished with death? She met his gaze. That isn't natural. It's tyranny. Bold words from a worthless runt. Linwood stepped closer. "But words will not protect you." He lunged. Delea's training took control. She moved left, using her smaller body to escape his jaws. Linwood bit empty air. Before he could turn, Dusty struck him from the side and sent the enforcer rolling across the ground. The remaining hunters attacked together. Morgan intercepted too. Golden light blazed through her autumn-colored fur. Gabriel moved like smoke around a third, preventing him from approaching Delea. The 4th hunter broke through. Tamika Aosta was a scarred and experienced female who had always taken particular pleasure in Delea's punishments. Her teeth closed around Delea's shoulder. Fur and flesh tore. Pain exploded through Delea. Her old instincts commanded her to become still and allow the stronger wolf to win. Instead, Delea remembered 3 starving pups. She remembered giving them her meals. She remembered choosing to protect them when the choice had cost everything. Delea twisted deeper into Tamika's grip and drove her own teeth toward the enforcer's throat. She did not bite deeply enough to kill. She could not force herself to do that. But the wound was enough. Tamika released her with a shocked cry. "She bit me. The Omega actually bit me." "Good," Delea growled. Blood ran from her shoulder and fell onto the moss. "Perhaps you'll think before attacking someone again." Chaos filled the clearing. The Guardians moved with supernatural unity, always shielding Delea while forcing the hunters backward. They did not kill. They had no need to. Their power overwhelmed the enforcers and made even experienced fighters hesitate. Linwood was the last to withdraw. He stood between the trees with Dusty's claw marks bleeding across his fur. Hatred burned in his eyes. "This is not finished, rogue. The Alpha will learn about you and those creatures. He'll come himself if necessary." "Let him come," Delea replied. She meant every word. "I'm finished running." The hunters disappeared. Broken branches and the sharp scent of fear marked their retreat. As soon as they were gone, Delea's legs failed. She shifted back into human form. Blood flowed freely from the wound in her shoulder. Morgan immediately began licking it. Healing warmth spread through the torn flesh. The bleeding slowed and stopped. When Morgan lifted her head, only a thin pink scar remained. "You healed me," Delea breathed. "Morgan, you can heal wounds." The Guardian's eyes glimmered with what appeared to be amusement. They seemed to be telling her that she had only begun to understand what they could do. Gabriel and Dusty returned after checking the forest. Their assessment came through the bond. The hunters had left, but they would return with more warriors. Perhaps the Alpha would lead them. "We have to leave," Delea said, forcing herself upright. "They know where we are." Gabriel shook his head. He showed her chambers deep inside the mountain. Ancient defenses had been carved there by the first wolves. If awakened, the magic could prevent anyone with violent intentions from entering. The cave could become a fortress. "How do we awaken it?" Gabriel answered with another vision. Delea stood before the stone altar she had seen earlier. Blood from her palm covered the carvings while she spoke in the ancient language. It was a claiming ritual. A declaration that the sanctuary belonged to Delea and her pack. Her pack. The words felt unnatural. Delea had never possessed a pack. The wolves who raised her had been captors, not family. That the three guardians had protected her, taught her, and remained beside her when leaving would have been safer. They were a pack in every way that mattered. "All right," Delea whispered. "Show me what I must do." Night fell as they descended into the mountain. The tunnels twisted far beyond any section Delea had explored. Eventually, the passage opened into an enormous chamber. Phosphorescent plants glowed across the walls in strange patterns. At the center stood a massive stone altar. Carved symbols appeared to move beneath the pale light. Delea approached carefully. Power filled the chamber. The weight of thousands of years seemed to press through the air. "What do I say?" Gabriel touched his nose to her hand. Ancient words entered her mind. They would bind the mountain to her spirit. They would declare to any wolf who entered that Delea was no longer prey. She was protector. She was pack. She was home. Delea cut her palm against the altar's sharp edge and pressed her bleeding hand onto the carvings. Golden light erupted from the symbols. She spoke the words Gabriel had given her. The entire mountain seemed to listen. Chapter 6. Standing Ground. The ritual transformed everything. When Delea spoke the final word and lifted her bloody hand, she felt the mountain accept her. Not only the cave, but the entire peak recognized her presence. Miles of earth, rock, water, and ancient power connected themselves to her. The bond settled inside her bones like a second heartbeat. Steady. Unbreakable. Delea could sense the deer feeding along the southern slope. She felt an eagle moving inside its nest near the summit. She followed the underground path of the stream that fed the waterfall. Most importantly, she would know the moment an intruder stepped onto her land. The guardians stood beside the altar. Their golden light pulsed in time with the glowing symbols. Through their bond, Delea understood the meaning of the ritual. The guardians had given her more than protection. They had given her legitimacy. Before modern politics and councils, new packs were created by claiming territory through ancient rites. Delea's blood and spoken oath had declared her alpha of a new pack. It consisted of one young woman and 3 supernatural guardians. The idea should have been absurd. An Omega who had only recently learned to shift was now an alpha. But the mountain did not laugh. The ancient power did not mock her. It acknowledged the truth. Delea had survived what should have destroyed her. She had protected weaker lives and refused to surrender when warriors came to kill her. That made her more worthy of the title than many wolves who inherited it. "They'll return," Delea said inside the echoing chamber. "They'll bring everything they have." Dusty's agreement moved through the bond. Alongside it came readiness. The Guardians were not afraid of Quentin Carlson or his pack. They had been waiting for this conflict since the moment Delea carried them from the ditch. She spent the next 3 days preparing. Through her connection to the mountain, she explored every tunnel and memorized escape routes, narrow passages, and defensible positions. She gathered food, preserved meat, and collected the healing plants Morgan identified. Whenever she was not eating or sleeping, she trained. Her transformations became so fluid that she could shift in the middle of a leap. She learned to identify individual wolves by scent from half a mile away. Her fighting improved from helpless resistance to a level that might keep her alive in a true battle. Delaya would never be the strongest wolf. She was learning to become the smartest. On the fourth day after the ritual, the Alpha arrived. Delaya felt him the instant his paw touched the mountain. Cold dominance moved through her connection to the territory. Quentin Carlson had ruled for 15 years without a successful challenge. He was more than physically strong. He was power given flesh. He had come to remind the rogue Omega where she belonged. Quentin brought 40 wolves. From a high ridge, Delaya watched them gather in the valley below the cave. Warriors, trackers, and hunters formed a wall of fur and teeth, representing the full strength of the pack she had once served. Josephine and Linwood stood among them, both wearing confident expressions. They expected a slaughter. They believed this would be a quick demonstration of what happened to wolves who rejected the natural order. Quentin's gray wolf form was enormous, almost twice Delaya's size. Intelligence sharpened his gaze. He was not like Linwood, who relied only on brutality. Quentin was calculating, strategic, and completely certain that he could not lose. Delaya Sims, his voice thundered across the valley. Show yourself and face justice. For a moment, Delaya considered remaining hidden. She could allow the pack to exhaust itself searching. The mountain's defenses could divide the warriors and defeat them in smaller groups. Gabriel pressed against her side. His guidance entered her mind. This is not only about victory. You must show them that you are no longer prey. Delaya inhaled deeply. Then she stepped onto a rocky ledge where the entire pack could see her. She deliberately remained in human form, wearing the simple clothing Patty had brought. The 3 guardians formed a protective line behind her. Silence spread through the valley. I'm here, Delaya called. What kind of justice are you offering? The same justice that allowed me to be beaten every day for 19 years? She looked down at Quentin. The justice that declared me worthless because my wolf awakened later than yours? You violated our laws, Quentin replied with controlled calm. You harbored rogues, stole pack resources, and abandoned your duties. You know those crimes carry a death sentence. I saved 3 dying pups, Delaya answered. Pups your patrols passed without offering help. Has mercy become a crime? Mercy? Josephine's laughter rang through the valley. You stole food to feed strays. You lied about where you went and manipulated Patty into assisting you. That is betrayal. Patty helped me because she remembered what your pack did to her 20 years ago. Delaya's voice tightened. She knows what it means to live as an Omega inside a pack that treats weakness like a disease. Uneasy murmurs moved among the gathered wolves. Some looked angry. Others appeared ashamed. None defended her. They never had. Quentin lifted his head, silencing them. You've spoken. Now come down and accept judgment. Surrender peacefully, and your death will be quick. Continue resisting, and Linwood may make you suffer first. I will not surrender. Delaya's quiet answer carried clearly. And I will not come down. This mountain belongs to me now. The Alpha narrowed his eyes. I claimed it through the old rites. If you want me, you will have to enter my territory and take it. You dare claim land? Quentin demanded. You're an Omega who couldn't transform 2 months ago. You are not a pack. You are a rogue suffering from delusions. Then proving it should be easy. Steel entered Delaya's voice. Challenge me. The words cut through the valley. Alpha against Alpha. The victor keeps the mountain. The loser leaves and never returns. The pack erupted. Some wolves barked in disbelief. Others laughed or howled at the insult. An Omega had challenged an Alpha. The idea was unthinkable. Quentin should have dismissed her immediately. Instead, his attention shifted toward the Guardians. Delaya saw recognition enter his eyes. You know what they are, she said. Old stories, Quentin replied carefully. Legends of guardians who awaken when packs forget their true purpose. Tales meant to frighten children. Are they only tales? Delaya gestured behind her. These guardians were dying in a ditch on your territory. Your patrols ignored them because they were weak and did not belong to your pack. Mercy held no value inside your natural order. Her voice rose. They are proof that your way is broken. Every wolf became silent. You built your power by crushing anyone who does not match your definition of strength. You cast out the weak, punish those who are different, and destroy anyone who threatens your authority. She held Quentin's gaze. You call it tradition. You call it necessity, but it is only cruelty wearing the mask of natural law. Even Linwood had stopped laughing. The ancient laws state that any wolf may challenge for territory, Delea continued. They say nothing about rank or bloodline. They require only strength and will. She stepped to the edge of the rock. So I challenge you, Quentin Carlson. Fight me for this mountain. Prove that power gives you the right to rule, or admit that your natural order is so fragile it cannot survive one Omega who finally said no. For a long moment, Quentin stared at her. Delea could see him measuring every risk. If he refused, his pack might consider him weak. If he accepted and lost to an Omega, his authority would collapse. Your courage is impressive, he said at last. It is also foolish. He stepped forward. I accept. I have killed challengers stronger, faster, and more experienced than you. You will die on this mountain, Delea Sims. When you do, the Guardians will belong to me. They belong to no one, Delea answered. They choose their path. She looked down at him without lowering her gaze. Just as I do now. Quentin began climbing. The pack followed at a distance, positioning themselves where they could witness the challenge. Delea retreated into the cave system and led Quentin toward a broad chamber with a smooth stone floor and a high ceiling. She had chosen it as a natural arena. The battle inside would decide everything. Quentin entered in wolf form. His gray fur bristled with power. He was twice Delea's size and possessed 3 times her experience. His dominance pressed against her wolf, demanding submission. Delea refused to show her fear. Last opportunity, Quentin said. Submit, and I'll end this quickly. No. Then you'll die exactly as you lived, stubborn and foolish. He attacked with a speed no creature his size should have possessed. Delea shifted while dodging. The transformation felt as natural as breathing. She was smaller, she was faster, and she understood every surface of the chamber in a way Quentin never could. The mountain was her ally. Delea was no longer prey. Chapter 7. Proving Worth in Blood. Quentin's jaws closed inches from Delea's throat. She twisted beneath his guard. Her teeth caught his front leg, drawing blood and forcing him to stumble. The alpha roared. The sound struck the chamber walls with enough force to make the stone vibrate. He turned with astonishing speed and drove one massive paw into Delea's ribs. She flew across the smooth floor. Pain burst through her chest. Something cracked inside her. She forced herself to stand. The Guardians remained at the edge of the chamber, their golden eyes following every movement. They would not interfere. This challenge belonged to Delea. It was her opportunity to prove that she was more than the creature her former pack had tried to create. You're faster than I expected, Quentin admitted while circling her. But speed will not save you. I've destroyed dozens of challengers. He exposed his teeth. You're another corpse waiting to fall. He attacked again, pretending to move left before striking from the right. Delea barely escaped. His fangs grazed her shoulder and opened another wound. Hot blood spread through her gray fur. Quentin was testing her. He intended to let her exhaust herself before delivering the final blow. It was the method of a wolf who had won so often that defeat no longer existed in his imagination. Delea needed to change his calculations. She retreated farther into the chamber. The floor became irregular there, with sections worn smooth and others broken into sharp rises. Delea had memorized every depression, loose rock, and secure foothold during her preparation. Quentin followed with confidence. He did not know that 3 steps ahead, rainwater had gathered inside a shallow hollow, leaving the stone dangerously slick. Delia jumped over it. Quentin stepped directly into it. His paws slipped for a single heartbeat. His balance shifted forward. His throat became exposed. Delia struck. Her teeth passed through the thick fur and found the vulnerable skin beneath. She did not bite deeply enough to kill, but the wound showed Quentin how close death had come. The Omega he dismissed could have ended him. Quentin threw her away with a violent movement. His blood covered Delia's muzzle. He stepped backward. For the first time, Delia saw uncertainty in his eyes. "You're better than I believed," he admitted, "but better will not be enough." He changed his strategy. The overwhelming lunges stopped. Quentin became patient and methodical. He used his size to cut off escape routes and drive Delia toward the walls. Whenever she attempted to circle him, he moved to block her. The chamber became smaller around her. Delia was tiring. Every breath sent pain through her damaged ribs. Blood continued to run from her shoulder. Quentin was barely breathing harder than when the fight began. "This is the natural order," he said as he approached. "The strong survive, and the weak disappear. You can fight it or rage against it, but nothing changes what you were born to be." He moved closer. Lesser. The word wounded Delia more deeply than his claws. A part of her still believed it. For 19 years, she had been called worthless, defective, and wrong. How could those beliefs vanish after a few weeks of freedom? Delia backed into the wall. She was trapped. Quentin exposed his fangs and moved in for the kill. Then Gabriel's presence entered her mind. He did not offer words at first. He gave her a memory. 3 pups dying in a muddy ditch. A terrified girl, taught that she was nothing, choosing to save them anyway. "You are not lesser." Gabriel's certainty wrapped around Delia like armor. "You chose mercy when the world demanded cruelty. You protected helpless lives when doing so required you to lose everything. That is strength they cannot understand." Quentin lunged. Delia dropped flat. His momentum carried his body above her. She rolled, rose behind him, and tore her claws across his hind leg. The wound cut deep into the muscle that powered his attacks. Quentin howled with pain and fury. He spun, aiming his jaws toward her spine. Delia was already moving. She used the chamber wall to push herself upward, leaped over him, and landed behind him again. "You are right about one thing," Delia said, between painful breaths. "Nature does have an order." She circled him. "But it is not the one you believe. The strongest do not always survive." Her eyes stayed on his injured leg. "The adaptable survive, those willing to learn and change, those capable of recognizing value in what others call weakness. Philosophy won't protect you." Quentin charged. He favored the injured leg, but his speed remained terrifying. This time, Delia did not move away. She rushed forward and entered the space beneath his guard, too close for his powerful jaws to reach her properly. She attacked the injured leg again. Her teeth tore into the open wound. The limb collapsed beneath Quentin. His enormous body struck the stone. Before he could rise, Delia climbed onto his back. Her teeth rested against his throat. The killing position. One movement would end the life of the Alpha who had ruled for 15 years. The chamber became silent. Even the falling drops of water appeared to stop. "Do it," Quentin rasped. "Finish me. That is what I would do." Delia felt his pulse beneath her teeth. She could kill him with almost no effort. She could prove that she was stronger. She could prove she deserved to live. Then another truth passed through her bond with the Guardians. You are not them. Their cruelty does not need to become yours. Delia slowly released Quentin's throat and stepped away. He rolled onto his feet, limping badly. Confusion filled his eyes. Why? He stared at her. You won. By every law we follow, you should kill me. Perhaps those laws are the problem. Delea shifted into human form despite the pain tearing through her ribs and shoulder. Kill or be killed. Dominate or submit. Your laws offer no place for mercy, change, or another chance. She gestured toward the guardians. They did not survive because they were stronger than everything around them. They survived because I showed mercy when every other wolf walked away. Delea looked at Quentin. I chose to recognize value in something weak and dying. That choice made me stronger than I ever became inside your pack. Golden light pulsed through the chamber walls. The mountain itself seemed to witness her words. You're allowing me to live, Quentin said slowly, after everything I did and everything I allowed others to do to you. Killing you will not repair what is broken. It would only make me another alpha who rules through terror. Delea stood straighter. I refuse to become you. She met his gaze as an equal. The submissive Omega who could not look at a superior was gone. The mountain is mine, she said. I claimed it through the ancient right and defeated you according to the challenge laws. Her voice became firm. You and your pack will leave my territory and never return. You will also release Patty without punishment. Patty betrayed the pack. She helped me because she saw what you had become. Someone needed to stand against it. Quentin's expression hardened. And if I refuse? Delea's answer was quiet. I will challenge you again. Next time, I will not offer mercy. Refusing to learn would prove that mercy is wasted on you. Protecting someone who chooses cruelty again and again only allows that cruelty to continue. Quentin studied her. Then he shifted into human form. He was a tall man in his 40s, with gray hair and scars from countless battles. His injured leg almost failed beneath him as he walked toward the chamber exit. At the threshold, he stopped. You are wrong about the natural order, he said, but perhaps I was wrong as well. He looked back. The pack will leave. Patty will be released. You have my word as Alpha. Former Alpha, Dusty growled. It was the first time one of the guardians had spoken aloud in front of an outsider. Quentin flinched. Then he nodded. Former Alpha of this territory. His eyes returned to Delea. Other challenges will come. Some will be stronger than I was. Not every wolf will accept what happened here. Let them come, Delea said. I'm not afraid anymore. Quentin disappeared into the passage leading toward the valley. Moments later, the howls of his pack echoed through the mountain as he ordered their retreat. 40 wolves withdrew from Delea's territory. She had won. Impossibly, she had won. The moment the pack was gone, Delea's legs gave way. She collapsed naked and bleeding onto the cold floor. The guardians surrounded her. Morgan's healing power moved through Delea's broken ribs. Gabriel soothed her damaged mind. Dusty supported her with his solid body. I did it, she whispered through tears. Then she pressed her hands into their fur. We did it. Pride and joy filled their bond. The guardians had never doubted that this was what Delea could become. She was not meant to remain the pack's victim. She was meant to show them another path. Delea had been rejected, hunted, exiled, declared worthless, and sentenced to death. She had survived. Through survival, she finally became what the pack never permitted her to be, herself, free, powerful, unbroken, and her journey had only begun. Chapter 8. 25 Years of Peace. The years moved like water over stone, gradually reshaping everything they touched. Delea's mountain became a sanctuary for the rejected. Stories traveled across the territories about the Omega who had defeated an Alpha, and the ancient guardians who had chosen to follow her. Wolves spoke of a place where rank and bloodline did not determine whether a person deserved protection. At first, they arrived alone or in pairs. Eric Alvarado was a young wolf cast out after refusing to execute a rogue who had accidentally crossed his pack's border. Jamie May was an elderly female judged too old to remain useful. Her pack had left her in the wilderness to die. Nathaniel and Vince were adolescent twins whose parents had been killed in a territorial conflict. They had nowhere else to go. Delea accepted every one of them. She fed them and helped Morgan heal their wounds. Dusty trained those who wanted to defend themselves. Delea taught them that a pack did not need to be built on hierarchy and cruelty. It could be a family created through choice, trust, and mutual protection. Within 5 years, the mountain pack contained 20 wolves. After 10 years, there were 50. By the 15th year, more than 100 wolves called the mountain home. Delea transformed alongside the community she built. The frightened Omega, who could barely shift, became a leader whose name was spoken with respect across 6 territories. The Guardians grew with her. They had been helpless pups when Delea discovered them, but the passing decades revealed their true nature. They did not age like ordinary wolves. Their power deepened instead of fading. Gabriel's gift expanded beyond their shared bond. He began seeing possible futures and used those visions to guide Delea away from approaching dangers. Morgan's healing reached beyond physical wounds. She could ease the deep emotional scars carried by wolves who arrived traumatized by their former packs. Dusty became a warrior of legendary ability. Under his training, Delea's defenders learned to stand against the enforcers of any traditional territory. Yet the Guardians' most valuable gift was simpler than any ancient power. They loved Delea without conditions. In a world that had spent years declaring her worthless, they reminded her of her value every day. Delea's wolf also changed. The small and fragile gray animal grew through constant use and the Guardian's influence. Eventually, her wolf stood almost as large as Quentin's had. Silver streaks appeared inside her gray fur, catching moonlight like scattered stars. Her transformations became instantaneous. She could follow one wolf's scent through heavy rain for 5 miles. She had become everything the pack once claimed she could never be, and she had done it by rejecting everything they taught her. Other packs noticed. Some sent representatives seeking alliances. Others sent challengers who believed an Omega Alpha violated the natural order. Delea answered every visitor with the same calm resolve. Those who arrived peacefully found shelter. Those who brought violence faced Dusty, and an army trained not to conquer but to defend a chosen family. Quentin's former pack kept its distance. He eventually died during a border conflict, and his daughter inherited leadership 8 years before the new crisis began. The pack honored Quentin's promise. They never entered Delea's territory or threatened the refugees living there. It was a cold peace. But it was peace. Josephine unexpectedly became one of Delea's allies. 3 years after Quentin's defeat, Josephine challenged for leadership and won through a brutal fight. Power changed her, but not in the way Delea expected. Josephine sent intermediaries to request a meeting. When the 2 women finally faced each other, Josephine spoke without excuses. "I was cruel to you," she admitted. "Unforgivably cruel. I was taught that hurting the weak proved I was strong." She lowered her gaze. "I was wrong. I'm attempting to create something better." Delea and Josephine never became friends. They could not erase what had happened, but they developed an understanding. Both were female leaders trying, in different ways, to change a system designed to crush them. Patty joined Delea's mountain pack after her release. Delea built her a cottage near the main settlement. Patty became an advisor and a grandmother figure to young refugees who arrived terrified and lost. 5 years before the murders, Patty died peacefully in her sleep. She was surrounded by wolves who loved her. It was a gentler ending than she had ever imagined during her years as an Omega. Linwood challenged Josephine twice after she became Alpha. He lost both challenges. Later, he attempted to poison her and was exiled. Rumors claimed that he had joined a rogue pack that attacked vulnerable territories, but Delea never confirmed them. Some distant part of her hoped that even Linwood might eventually find whatever peace a damaged soul like his could accept. By the 23rd year, Delea's mountain pack had become a force even powerful traditional territories respected. Her wolves did not seize land. They did not raid or conquer. Their existence proved that wolves could thrive without destroying one another through endless struggles for dominance. Delea had created something that would survive beyond her lifetime. That made the day everything began to collapse far more painful. It started with Gabriel. For weeks he behaved strangely. He stared into distances Delea could not see, whimpered during sleep, and pressed against her with desperate urgency. Fragments of his visions crossed their bond. Darkness moved through the territories. Wolves attacked one another with mindless rage. At the center waited something old and hungry. "What are you seeing?" Delea asked one evening. They sat on a ridge overlooking the mountain. Gabriel answered with an image that chilled her blood. Delea stood inside a stone chamber surrounded by bodies. Behind her, 3 shadow-covered figures reached toward the guardians. "Who are they?" Gabriel did not reveal more. He pressed himself closer while fear flowed through their bond. 2 days later, Josephine arrived with 12 warriors. She appeared exhausted and older than her 41 years. Dark shadows marked the skin beneath her eyes. "We need to speak," Josephine said. "About what?" "The murders." Delea's stomach tightened. "What murders?" "You haven't heard?" Genuine surprise crossed Josephine's face. 3 alphas in the Southern Territories were killed. Every death was identical. Their throats were torn open, and their bodies were arranged in ritual patterns. The councils have called emergency meetings. Every pack is accusing the others. What does that have to do with me? Josephine held her gaze. The claw measurements from all 3 bodies match yours exactly. Delea became still. Witnesses also reported a gray wolf with silver streaks leaving each territory shortly after the bodies were discovered. "That's impossible. I've remained on this mountain. My entire pack can confirm it." "I know," Josephine said. "I believe you." Her expression became grim. "The other alphas do not. They claim you've become a rogue and started murdering leaders who refuse to submit to your influence. Some say the Guardians corrupted you." Josephine paused. "There will be a trial. Every major alpha will attend, and they intend to demand your execution for crimes against wolf law." "A trial?" Rage rose beneath Delea's shock. "Someone framed me, and their solution is another tribunal?" "The alternative is war," Josephine answered. "Every pack could unite against your mountain. Hundreds of warriors would descend on this territory and destroy everything you built." She took a breath. "The trial is your only opportunity to prove your innocence." "And if I fail?" Josephine's silence answered the question. That night, Delea summoned her entire pack. More than 100 wolves gathered in the main clearing. Fear and uncertainty filled their faces. Delea had protected them for decades. Now she needed them to trust her once more. "You've heard the accusations," she said. She stood in human form with Gabriel, Morgan, and Dusty beside her. "I swear by everything we created together that I did not murder those alphas. Someone is using my appearance to turn the packs against us." "Who would do this?" Eric asked. He was middle-aged now and had become one of Delea's most trusted advisors. "I don't know. Gabriel has seen darkness approaching, something determined to destroy what exists here." Delea looked across the faces of her family. "I must attend the trial and answer the charges, but all of you need to remain on the mountain, protect our home." "Let us travel with you," Vince argued. Nathaniel nodded beside him. "You should not face the councils alone." "I won't be alone." Delea rested one hand on Gabriel's head. "The Guardians will travel with me. I need everyone else here. If the trial is meant to lure me away while someone attacks the mountain, you will be our only defense." Uneasy murmurs spread through the clearing. Her wolves understood. Everything they built was in danger. "When will you leave?" Jami asked. The elderly female had lived on the mountain for more than 20 years and remained one of Delea's strongest supporters. "Tomorrow," Josephine answered. The trial begins in 3 days on the old ceremonial grounds. Delaya must arrive before sunset on the 3rd day. Otherwise, the council will declare her guilty in her absence. 3 days. Delaya had 3 days to cross hostile territories and stand before alphas who already viewed her as a murderer. Somehow, she needed to prove her innocence. If she failed, she would face execution again. This time, her death would not be the only loss. Every refugee who trusted her could be condemned to whatever punishment the unified Pax chose. 25 years of peace and building something better could end in 3 days. Chapter 9. Condemned by Lies. The ceremonial grounds stood where 7 territories met. No pack could claim the land. Treaties older than living memory had declared it neutral. Massive stones formed a circle large enough to hold hundreds of wolves. Ancient symbols covered their surfaces, identical to the carvings Delaya had awakened on her mountain altar. She arrived at sunset on the 3rd day. The journey had exhausted her, and dread sat heavily inside her chest. The guardians walked in their familiar formation. Gabriel remained on her left. Morgan stayed on her right. Dusty guarded her from behind. Hundreds of wolves had assembled. Many stared openly at the guardians. Some had traveled only to witness what they believed would be Delaya's execution. 12 alphas stood at the center of the circle, representing the region's most powerful packs. Josephine stood among them, her expression grim. The other leaders looked at Delaya with contempt, suspicion, or cold calculation. An elderly female named Antoinette Scott presided over the gathering. Her white fur was streaked with gray, and her eyes remained sharp despite her age. She ruled an ancient northern pack that existed before most modern territories had been established. Delaya Sims, Antoinette called. Her voice carried across the entire gathering. You are accused of murdering 3 alphas, Danilo Ramos of Riverbend, Pascal Browning of Ironwood, and Marcelino Gibbs of Shadowfen. She studied Delaya. Each victim was killed in the same manner. The throat was torn open, the body arranged according to an unknown ritual, and the murder committed during the dark moon. Antoinette continued. Witnesses saw a wolf matching your physical description near every scene. How do you answer? Not guilty, Delaya said clearly. I killed no one. I remained on my mountain during each murder. More than 100 witnesses can confirm it. Witnesses from your own pack, a scarred male alpha interrupted. His name was Ismael Calderon. They are loyal to you. They would lie to protect their leader. Their testimony has no value. What testimony would you accept? Delaya demanded. You appear to have decided my guilt already. This trial is only a performance before you carry out the sentence. Careful, Omega, Ismael growled. You are speaking to your superiors. I'm speaking to wolves who should know better. Delaya's frustration sharpened her voice. For 25 years, I have protected refugees from your packs. Wolves you cast out, abused, or abandoned. Now you expect everyone to believe I suddenly became a murderer. She turned toward the council. What reason would I have to kill 3 alphas I had never met? Power, another alpha answered. The same motive behind most murders. Your territory has grown too large and influential. Perhaps you wish to eliminate rival leaders and expand. I've never wanted control over other packs, Delaya replied. All I wanted was to live in peace and create a safe home for wolves who had nowhere else to go. Her anger rose. If I wanted conquest, I had 25 years to attempt it. Perhaps something recently changed, Antoinette said. The guardians beside you are not ordinary wolves. Their strength grows with time. Her gaze moved toward them. How can we know they have not corrupted you or changed your purpose toward darker goals? The accusation struck Delaya deeply. Outrage moved through all 3 bonds. The guardians have never corrupted anyone, she answered coldly. They have healed the injured, trained the vulnerable, and protected the helpless. Everything good inside my pack exists partly because of them. Then allow them to speak. Ismail challenged. Let these ancient creatures explain what they are and what they truly want. Gabriel stepped forward. His dark eyes moved across the gathered alphas. When he spoke, power in his voice caused the standing stones to vibrate. We are the legacy of the first packs. We were born from the ancient magic that gave wolves their forms and their bonds. Every wolf became still. We sleep between ages and awaken when packs forget their purpose, when hierarchy replaces community, when strength becomes cruelty, when mercy is punished as weakness. Gabriel looked directly at Ismail. We awakened because a young Omega chose to rescue 3 dying lives even though she believed that decision would cost her everything. His voice deepened. In that moment, she became what a pack was always meant to be. A family that protects, not a system that destroys. Beautiful words, Ismail said. They do not change the evidence. 3 alphas are dead, and the killer matched Delaya's size, fur, and scent. My scent? Delaya interrupted. The witnesses recognized my exact scent? Ismail hesitated. A similar scent. A gray wolf marked with silver. Hundreds of wolves possess gray and silver fur, Josephine said. That description proves nothing. If the witnesses could recognize Delaya's personal scent, they would know she has not left her mountain for 6 months. Perhaps she learned to hide it, another alpha suggested. The Guardians possess unusual abilities. Who can say what they taught her? The accusations continued. Each theory became more unreasonable than the one before it. Delaya stood in the center and felt centuries of prejudice pressing against her. The council did not truly want answers. It wanted a villain. The murders had frightened the packs, and Delaya was an Omega who dared to become an Alpha. She was the perfect target. Enough, Antoinette ordered. The council fell silent. We can discuss possibilities all night. What matters is proof. Her gaze traveled across the other leaders. Do we possess direct evidence that Delaya committed these murders? Not suspicion, not speculation, evidence. Silence followed. The alphas looked at one another. Hope flickered inside Delaya. They had nothing beyond descriptions that could match countless wolves. Then a voice came from the edge of the circle. I have evidence. Every head turned. A hooded man stepped from the crowd. When he lowered the hood, Delaya's blood froze. Linwood. 25 years had made him older and harder. Scars covered his face, evidence of the violent life he had lived after exile. His eyes had not changed. They still held the same hatred that burned inside them when he hunted Delaya through the forest. Linwood Dalton, Antoinette said, former enforcer of Josephine's pack. You claim to have proof? I do. Linwood reached beneath his cloak and removed a blood-stained piece of fabric. This was discovered at the Shadowfen murder scene. It came from a blanket woven on Delaya's mountain. He held it higher. I recognize the pattern. No other pack uses it. Delaya's heart dropped. She recognized the weaving. Her pack gave blankets with that design to new refugees. But she did not know how one had reached the murder scene. That proves nothing, Josephine argued. Those blankets are given to wolves who leave the mountain. Anyone could possess one. True, Linwood replied smoothly. But when combined with the witness descriptions and the ritual arrangement of the bodies, which matches ceremonies the Guardians would understand, it creates a powerful pattern. You killed them, Delaya said. The pieces suddenly connected. You murdered those alphas and arranged the evidence against me. This is revenge for your exile. Linwood smiled. Prove it. He spread his hands. You have no evidence against me. I have witnesses, physical proof, and a clear motive for your actions. You wanted territory and the removal of rival leaders. His smile widened. I'm only a former enforcer with no pack and no power. Why would I risk my life by murdering 3 alphas? The trap was nearly perfect. Linwood had spent years preparing his revenge and waited for the opportunity to destroy everything Delaya built. She could not prove his guilt without the same kind of evidence he had manufactured against her. The council will deliberate, Antoinette announced. Delia Sims and the Guardians will remain under guard until a judgment is reached. How long will that require? Delia asked. As long as justice requires. Warriors escorted Delia to a hollow beneath the standing stones. It was not formally called a prison, but 12 guards surrounded the entrance and made it clear she could not leave. The Guardians remained with her. They pressed their bodies against hers, their presence becoming the only comfort inside the nightmare. Fear flowed through their bonds. They were not afraid for themselves. They feared what would happen to Delia. There must be another way, she whispered. Gabriel, you can see possible futures. Tell me what happens. Sorrow filled his answer. I see many endings. In most, you die. In a very small number, you survive by making a choice that costs everything. What choice? Gabriel could not show her. The future had become too tangled, dependent on decisions made by wolves beyond Delia's control. The council argued through the night. Voices rose above the stones, sometimes becoming shouts. The packs wanted blood. They wanted closure and someone to punish for murders that had shattered their sense of safety. At dawn, Antoinette emerged. Her expression revealed nothing. The council has reached a verdict. Every wolf gathered around the circle. Delia Sims, by a vote of 9-3, you have been found guilty of murdering 3 alphas. The world stopped. The sentence is death by execution. Antoinette's voice remained cold. It will be carried out immediately. Delia heard only blood rushing through her ears. Desperate howls tore through the Guardians' bonds. For 25 years, she had built a better world. She had protected hundreds of lives and proved that mercy could become stronger than cruelty. Now she would die for murders she had not committed. There was nothing she could do to stop it. Chapter 10. Mercy's Final Victory. They took Delia to the execution post at sunrise. She remained in human form. Silver chains bound her hands behind her back, burning the skin around her wrists. The Guardians had been separated from her. 20 warriors surrounded each one at the outer edge of the ceremonial circle. Rage and desperation tore through their bonds. They refused to accept what was about to happen. But if they attacked, hundreds of assembled wolves would descend on them. Even their ancient strength could not overcome such numbers. Antoinette approached beneath the first light of dawn. Do you have final words, Delia Sims? Delia looked across the crowd. Some wolves watched with satisfaction. Others appeared uncomfortable. Josephine stood among the alphas with grief openly visible on her face. I did not murder those leaders, Delia said. Her voice carried across the circle. When the true killer strikes again after I'm dead, remember this moment. She lifted her chin. Remember that you chose convenience instead of truth, and revenge instead of justice. Remember that you executed someone whose only crime was protecting the wolves your packs abandoned. Touching, Linwood called from the crowd. But irrelevant. Justice has already spoken. Antoinette raised one clawed hand. The executioner stepped forward. Tyrell Melendez was a massive enforcer who had killed rogues for 30 years without hesitation. He lifted his claw above Delia's throat. Wait! A desperate voice rang across the ceremonial grounds. Every wolf turned. A young man pushed through the crowd. He was barely older than a teenager. His clothing was torn and covered in mud. Exhaustion and fear had drained all color from his face. I have information, he gasped, about the murders. I know who killed the alphas. Who are you? Antoinette demanded. Joseph McLaughlin. I was part of Linwood's rogue pack. The young wolf flinched when Linwood looked at him. He'll kill me for speaking, but I can't allow an innocent wolf to die. This boy is delusional, Linwood said smoothly. He's probably under the influence of something. Do not listen to him. I have proof, Joseph shouted. He reached beneath his shirt and pulled out a knife with a distinctive carved handle. This blade was used to position the bodies in the ritual patterns. Linwood kept it as a trophy. I stole it before I escaped. Antoinette accepted the knife and examined it carefully. Her expression darkened. "This is ceremonial silver," she said. "The craftsmanship is rare and highly specific." Her eyes lifted toward Linwood. "How did this wolf acquire it?" "He's lying," Linwood replied. "He's trying to frame me to save his pathetic life." "I'm not lying," Joseph insisted. His voice cracked, but he continued. "Linwood planned this for years. After Josephine exiled him, he joined a rogue pack in the Southern Territories. He recruited wolves who hated Delea's mountain and believed she was destroying the natural order." Joseph pointed at Linwood. "They believed that if they murdered enough alphas and blamed Delea, every pack would unite against her and destroy everything she created." "Ridiculous," Linwood spat. "Why would I care what happens to an Omega?" "Because she defeated you," Joseph said. Silence began spreading through the circle. 25 years ago, you hunted Delea, and she escaped. You told the rogue pack that the humiliation never left you." Joseph took a step forward. "You said an Omega making you look weak destroyed your reputation. You dreamed about watching her die while she could do nothing to prevent it." The ceremonial grounds became completely quiet. Every wolf understood the kind of hatred that could consume someone for decades. Antoinette's eyes narrowed. "Linwood Dalton, do you deny these accusations?" "Of course I deny them. This boy is clearly—" "Then you will have no objection to a truth-binding ceremony." Antoinette's words cut him off. "The ancient magic will compel honest answers. If you are innocent, you have nothing to fear." Color disappeared from Linwood's face. For one instant, his controlled mask broke. Rage and hatred became visible beneath it. Then he made his choice. Linwood shifted while lunging. His wolf exploded from his human body, jaws open, and aimed directly at Delea's throat. If he could no longer frame her, he intended to kill her himself. He never reached her. Dusty broke through the warriors surrounding him and appeared between them like solid smoke. The Guardian had become twice Linwood's size. Golden light rippled through his dark fur. His jaws closed around Linwood's throat. The strike carried terrible finality. "No," Linwood gurgled. Blood filled his mouth. "She doesn't deserve. Worthless Omega. Should have died." His body became limp. Dusty released the corpse and returned to Delea's side. Blood stained his muzzle. Chaos erupted across the ceremonial grounds. Wolves howled. Alphas shouted. Warriors reached for weapons. Antoinette's voice cut through every sound. Silence. The entire gathering froze. "The guilty wolf revealed himself through his own actions," she declared. "An innocent man would have submitted to truth-binding." Linwood's attack supports Joseph's testimony. She turned toward the guards. "Release Delea immediately." The silver chains fell away. Burns circled Delea's wrists. Morgan rushed to her and gently licked the injuries. Healing warmth moved through the damaged skin. Gabriel and Dusty surrounded her. Relief and remaining fury caused their bodies to tremble. "I offer a formal apology," Antoinette said. "Justice was nearly corrupted here. You are innocent of every charge and free to return to your territory." Delea wanted to scream at her. She wanted to demand why the council had come so close to murdering an innocent wolf without true proof. But she was too exhausted. Her body and emotions had been pushed beyond their limits. She could only nod. Josephine forced her way through the crowd and pulled Delea into a fierce embrace. "I'm sorry," she whispered. "I should have fought harder. I should have trusted my instincts when the evidence felt wrong." "You tried," Delea answered. "That is more than most wolves did." The other alphas began leaving. Many looked uncomfortable with how close they had come to executing an innocent leader. Several approached Delea first. They offered awkward apologies, praised her composure, and suggested future alliances now that her innocence had been established. Delea accepted their words with exhausted grace. She had survived. For that moment, survival was enough. As the grounds emptied, Joseph approached slowly. He was about 19, the same age Delea had been when she found the Guardians. His eyes carried the same hunted expression she remembered seeing in her own reflection. "Thank you," Delea said. "You saved my life. You saved mine first." Delea stared at him. 3 years ago, I wandered onto your mountain," Joseph explained. "I was starving and nearly dead." He swallowed. "Your wolves fed me and healed me. Then they gave me supplies and allowed me to leave. You didn't know me. You owed me nothing, but you helped anyway." His voice became quiet. "When I learned what Linwood planned, I knew I had to act. I had to repay the mercy you showed me." Tears burned Delea's eyes. This was why she had created the sanctuary. This was why she protected strangers and outcasts for 25 years. Mercy moved outward in ways no one could predict. A single compassionate act could form a connection capable of returning decades later and saving a life. "Come to the mountain," Delea offered. "You'll need protection. The remaining members of Linwood's rogue pack may seek revenge." Hope entered Joseph's face. "You would accept me after I ran with them?" "You did what you believed was necessary to survive," Delea said. "When the moment mattered, you chose truth instead of safety." She held out her hand. "That makes you pack, if you want it." "I want it," Joseph whispered, "more than anything." The journey home lasted 3 days. Delea traveled with the Guardians and Joseph. Josephine insisted on escorting them personally to prevent another attack. They crossed territories that had been openly hostile only days earlier. Now the wolves watching from the borders showed cautious respect. The story had already spread. The Omega Alpha had been falsely condemned and nearly executed. She had faced death with dignity. Mercy shown to a starving stranger years earlier had returned to save her. Stories like that became legends. Legends changed the way wolves understood the world. When they reached the base of Delea's mountain, the bond with the territory welcomed her like a steady heartbeat. More than 100 wolves waited along the ridges. They had spent days believing their alpha might never return. When they saw her, they howled. Joy and relief echoed across the valleys. Delea shifted and answered them. The Guardians joined her, their voices blending with hers in a song of survival, triumph, and bonds that could not be broken. She climbed the familiar path with her family around her. At the settlement, wolves surrounded Delea in a crushing wave of fur, bodies, and love. They had built the sanctuary together. They had created living proof that another way was possible. And it had survived. They had survived. That night, Delea stood on the ridge overlooking her territory. Gabriel pressed against her left side. Morgan rested against her right. Dusty stood behind her. It was the same formation they had used 25 years earlier when she was a frightened girl fleeing an execution order. "You saw this," Delea said to Gabriel. "Didn't you? You knew I would face death again and somehow survive." Gabriel answered through their bond. "I saw possibilities. The future is never certain. But I knew that if you remained true to yourself and continued choosing mercy instead of cruelty, the connections you created would catch you when you fell." "What happens now?" Delea asked. "What comes next?" Gabriel showed her glimpses of possible futures. More refugees arrived at the mountain. Alliances formed with packs willing to change. Young wolves trained under Delea's principles traveled into other territories and carried those lessons with them. A slow revolution spread through kindness rather than conquest. It would not be easy. Other challenges would come. Many wolves would cling to the old ways. But change had already begun. The seed Delea planted 25 years earlier, when she chose to rescue 3 dying pups instead of walking away, had finally begun to bear fruit. "We changed the world," she whispered. Tears moved down her face. "We did it by choosing kindness, by refusing to become what they tried to make us." The Guardians pressed closer. Their certainty surrounded her. Delea had always been exactly who she was meant to be, not despite being rejected, but partly because of it. Only someone who had experienced the cruelty of pack hierarchy could imagine a better system. Only someone who had been called worthless could recognize value in the wolves everyone else dismissed. Only someone who chose mercy when cruelty would have been easier could create a sanctuary that survived for 25 years and might endure for 100 more. Delea had been rejected, exiled, and sentenced to death twice. She survived because, 25 years earlier, she made one simple decision. She saved 3 dying pups when every law and every instinct for self-preservation told her to walk away. Those pups saved her in return. They did more than protect her from an executioner's claw. They saved her from accepting the lies the pack told about her. They prevented the world's cruelty from turning her cruel. They showed Delea who she had always been, strong enough to remain kind, brave enough to offer mercy, powerful enough to change everything. That was the greatest gift anyone had ever given her. The moon rose above the mountain and covered the territory in silver light. Delea howled, not with sorrow or fear, but with joy and triumph. She stood exactly where she belonged. 3 ancient guardians howled beside her. Their voices crossed every surrounding territory, announcing